Hey guys, John here from Story Prism. I wanted to do a quick demo of one of the most powerful features of Story Prism, which is the ability for you to create connections between different pieces of data or different notes. And so, as you know, with Story Prism, you can create different notes and then connect them together. And what this does is it informs the AI in a much deeper way than you would traditionally. So in a traditional RAG setup, for example, in ChatGPT, you can upload documents or PDFs and other documents, and it will chunk those documents, meaning it will break them down. And when you query the chatbot, it searches through its data essentially and finds the relevant piece of information within the document in order to answer you. And that's a very powerful tool. And very powerful technique. And so we incorporate that, but we also take it a step further by adding the ability for you to create a knowledge graph of your data. And so if you look here in the notebook, it starts blank and you can populate it with all of your data that you want for your story. And then you can customize it in various ways. And so what you're doing is essentially creating the brain of the AI. You're taking different pieces of data and you're creating connections between them in order to help the AI understand your work in a much deeper way. And so the result of that is much better answers than you would otherwise get, with a traditional RAG setup. So I'm going to demo this in a very simple way here for you guys. So I have two notes here, and I'm going to go ahead and show you what happens when you connect data and when you try to have unconnected data. So let's start with the top. So we're going to do a character note. We're going to call it character just for demo purposes. And it's a detective, so we're going to call him Detective Miller. He's cynical and tired, haunted by a case that went cold 10 years ago. And we'll tag it character. And then we have a scene. And the scene is an old, dusty bookstore at midnight. Rain is streaking down the windows. Then we'll create a tag called scene. So right now we have two notes, two separate pieces of information. Oop, misspelled haunted. Let me fix that. So we have a character, Detective Miller, and a scene. And so let's go ahead and show you guys what happens. So I'm going to pull up the assistant, and I'm going to ask it to describe the feeling in the room as Detective Miller walks in. So we have here, so based on your note describing the scene, a dusty bookstore at midnight with rain streaking down the windows, and the characterization of Detective Miller is cynical, the feeling in the room as he walks in can be imagined as heavy and tense, layered with a sense of melancholy and lingering mystery. Okay, that's good. The bookstore's dustiness in a late hour evoke an atmosphere of neglect, isolation, the rain outside, that's cold, somber backdrop. So it's basically describing, just the overall, the feeling is one of sadness, a quiet suspense mixed with poignant sadness, an environment both physically and emotionally charged, are reflecting Miller's inner struggle and unresolved past that shadows him. So this is good, right? So what it's doing is it's still reading the data, right? And so that's the thing about Story Prism is that you can it'll understand anything you put into the canvas, but it won't understand the relationship nearly as well if you don't connect things together. So what I'm going to demonstrate now is what happens when you connect the character to the scene, and you're going to see that it creates a much more powerful response, much more interesting response. So we have here the character. I'm going to connect it to the scene. And what I'm doing here is that I have a scene that I'm writing, and I want my character to be a part of that scene. And so I draw a connection and output, and then input. So it's an output, character, note, input, scene. And so I'm going to demonstrate what happens. I'm going to ask the same exact question. It's going to copy and paste here, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. As Detective Miller steps into the old, dusty bookstore at midnight, the room feels thick with stillness and unspoken tension. The faint scent of aged paper mingles with the cold dampness seeping through the rain-streaked windows. Shadows cling to every corner, deepening the sense of isolation and mystery. Miller's presence, worn and burdened by years of cynicism, and the ghost of a cold case adds a heavy weight to the air, as if the space itself recognizes his haunted exhaustion. The atmosphere is charged, quiet but expectant, like the calm before a long overdue revelation. That's very, very interesting compared to this, right? You can see this is a much more, let's call it rational, or much more fact-based, right? It's inferring a relationship because you have character in scene, but it has to do the work of making that connection for you. When you make the connection for the AI, right, now it understands that Detective Miller, right, the backstory, it understands the scene, it forms that relationship automatically, and it creates a much deeper response. So let's compare the two different responses here, right? So on the one hand, this response clearly took two different pieces of information and inferred a connection, right? And it, by my prompt, right, by me telling it that there's a connection here, but it inferred that connection, and then it kind of went through and basically described what was in the note and et cetera, right? So, you could see, a sense of melancholy, a lingering mystery, the bookstore's dustiness, late hour, evoke an atmosphere of neglect and isolation, right? Okay, yes, yes. But I'm not getting Detective Miller's feeling, right? I'm not getting his inner experience. But with this, because I've established a relationship, right? I said that the character Detective Miller is in the scene. The AI now understands that relationship in a deeper way. And so now I'm getting a response that really kind of evokes the experience of Detective Miller stepping into that old dusty bookstore, right? I'm seeing, the shadows cling to the corner, deepening the sense of isolation. Miller's presence, right, burdened by years of cynicism and the ghost of a cold case, adds a heavy weight to the air, as if the space itself recognizes his haunted exhaustion, right? A charged atmosphere, quiet and expectant, like the calm before a long overdue revelation, right? And it's writing it in a much more interesting prose. So to wrap up, connecting notes is one of the most important steps to unlocking the full power of Story Prism, right? It's really how you teach the AI the unique relationships within your project. And so you can create many different types of connections, many different types of relationships. Even, for example, you could create, and that's one of the things we have here is chatbots, right? So you have a novel writer, right? The chatbot persona can take all of this information, and now you have, you've informed the chatbot persona, which will add even more additional insights into your work, right? So it's really how you get more insightful, smarter, and a more personalized assistance, right? So you can turn your scattered ideas into a cohesive story. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll do more demos like this in the future. Thanks.